Hello friends, welcome to the course on Institutional Management and Administration. Friends, in the previous session, we had discussed an important aspect of institutional management, that is organizing. Under this important aspect, we had tried to understand the concept of organizing and the principles underlying organizing. In this session today, we shall be understanding three important concepts, that is authority, responsibility and delegation, which form a very important part of any organizing in an educational institution. I am sure after going through this presentation, you shall be able to understand the concepts of authority, responsibility and accountability and their importance in an educational institution, identify sources of authority and its type in any educational setup, understand managerial triad, interrelationship between authority, responsibility and accountability, and understand the importance of delegation in making managerial role efficient and effective. First, let's start with authority. Authority is defined as an official power to act. It is the power given by the individual's position to direct the work of others. Institutional managers have the authority to hire, fire, and discipline others. It refers to the rights inherent in the managerial position to make decisions, give orders, and utilize resources. Authority means accountability. Managers must report and justify work results to the managers above them. That is called accountability. Sources of authority. These can be conferred by a group over which the authority is exercised. Can be legitimate or illegitimate. This can be based on the position of an individual in the institution, and this can be also based on the rank or pay grade of an individual in the institution. Let's understand the types of authority. Basically, there are four types of authority, starting with the ultimate authority. Ultimate authority deals with the original source. Let's take the education sector. In the case of education sector, the ultimate source is Ministry of Human Resource Development. Then comes the legal authority. Let's understand it with an example. Director delegates to the Dean Academic Affairs to act on behalf of the institute in an academic matter of the institute. This is the legal authority given by the director to Dean Academic Affairs. The third type of authority is operational authority. This is giving someone permission to do certain job, things, tasks. You are permitting somebody to do jobs, permission, a task and things, giving him some power, and then he is expected to be accountable to you for that operation. Then finally comes the technical authority. It refers to a person who is recognized an expert in some particular field, discipline and area. That's the reason it is called technical authority. The second concept is responsibility. The obligation to complete a task or perform a mission is responsibility. Responsibility exists individually and at all levels of an institution. Once held, responsibility cannot be transferred. This is very important to understand. Once you are having any responsibility, it cannot be transferred to others. Although others can be assigned tasks oriented to the obligation, but overall responsibility remains with the person assigning the task. With more authority comes more responsibility. The second concept is accountability. It is a process by which a subordinate reports the outcome of an assigned task, job or mission and accepts the consequences, good or bad. Ultimately, accountability can never be delegated even though authority may be delegated. Being accountable means you have the responsibility for performing assigned tasks. Thus, accountability emphasizes results, not intentions. There is a managerial triad between the three concepts which we have discussed just now. This managerial triad comprises of authority, responsibility and accountability. It says, fulfilling responsibilities through the appropriate application of authority and acceptance of accountability enables trust, special trust and confidence of one's superiors and subordinates. Without there is a special trust with the superiors and subordinates, these three types of concepts cannot be implemented in any educational institution. There is some interrelationship between the three. Responsibility is assigned, assumed, or conferred. Once held, responsibility cannot be transferred. In the case of accountability, it is an extent to responsibility. Accountability is being answerable to how the responsibility is handled. And thirdly, authority can be delegated. It is critical component of the managerial triad. Authority is the power or control to act on the responsibility. So these are linked with each other. Let's understand another important concept that is called delegation. Delegation of authority and responsibility. Delegation is a two-way process by which responsibility and authority for performing tasks is assigned to a certain individual. In other words, it is the process of assigning managerial authority and responsibility to the managers and employees lower in the hierarchy of the individual. So the top level manager is delegating responsibility and authority to the subordinates under him. This can be done in the way of delegation. To be more efficient, most institutional managers are expected to delegate as much of their work as possible and make others accountable for that job. But it must be understood, ultimate responsibility, ultimate accountability are with the individual who is assigning the job. Let's understand the delegation process. For delegating any work, we need to analyze the delegate's job, means the person who is going to delegate the job. Analyzing the subordinate's job relating to the strengths and weaknesses, we must understand the strengths and weaknesses of the subordinates, whether he is able to cope up with the job, whether he will be able to perform, whether he is having some weakness due to which it should not be delegated to him. This must be analyzed beforehand. After that, after the analysis, we have to delegate the specific tasks or the jobs to the individual. Then determining the specific tasks to be delegated, delegating appropriate tasks to the subordinate, and finally providing feedback and follow-up, which is a very important part of this delegation process. When to delegate? It must be understood by the institutional manager, because unless they delegate their tasks, sometimes what will happen, they will be involved in those activities which are not prime to the institution. Their time is more important in the institution. They could have utilized that time for primary activities and assigned the jobs to subordinates which can be delegated to them. When to delegate, it's an important issue. For doing that, the delegatee must understand that tasks that can be better done by the subordinates must be identified. Tasks that are urgent but not of high priority must be identified. Tasks relevant to the subordinate's career should be given to him. Tasks of appropriate difficulty which can be handled by the subordinate. If the task is very complex which cannot be handled by the subordinate, it should not be given to him. Otherwise, it will result in the failure. The task can be both pleasant and unpleasant tasks. And finally, the tasks not central to manager's role. These are the basis on which we delegate the work or the job to our subordinates. How to delegate? For delegating, we need to understand and finalize the responsibilities very early in the stage of a project. Provide adequate authority and specify the limits of discretion to the subordinates. Specify feedback and reporting requirements. What will be the feedback and reporting requirement? When you are to report me? When you are to give the feedback? When I will be giving you the feedback? This must be finalized beforehand. Ensure subordinates' acceptance of the responsibilities. Inform others who need to know that who have been delegated this task. Others must know it. Monitor progress in the appropriate ways. Ensure subordinate receives critical information from all the corners wherever required and the relevant information which is required for executing the task. Provide support and assistance to the subordinate to whom the task has been delegated. Make mistakes a learning experiences. Once you have committed a mistake, learn from it and don't repeat that mistake in future. This is the way we delegate a task to the subordinates, and task should be not very prime, not very urgent, not very critical for the institution, and it should be based on the competencies of the subordinates. Reasons why leaders fail to delegate. Sometimes what happens, the leaders have delegated their responsibilities to the individuals. They have succeeded. But there are the cases when leaders don't want to delegate their powers to the individual powers, accountability, responsibility to the others. There are some reasons for behind it. Let's understand these reasons. Some of the reasons can be strong need for personal power, doubt in personal ability, doubt in subordinate's ability, that whether he will be able to do it or not, perception of different values and objectives in the subordinate by the delegatee, individual has exceptional task expertise, self-confidence and desire to maintain quality of work. The leader thinks that he can do the work best. That's the reason he doesn't want to delegate it to others. Situational constraints. Situation is complex, time is very short, time is urgent. Accordingly, we cannot delegate it. Protection of confidential information. In that case, you cannot delegate to others because it will lead to leakage of the information. Highly interdependent subordinate jobs. So based on this, and these are or I may say these are some of the reasons due to which leaders fail to delegate the responsibilities to the subordinates. This is a slide which is indicating the manager-subordinate relationship in terms of responsibility, authority and accountability. Friends, I am sure by now you must have understood the importance of authority, accountability, responsibility and how to delegate. For implementation of any educational plan, any project, any growth project, development project, the role of authority, accountability, responsibility becomes very important. Any institutional manager should understand how to delegate the power, how to implement the authority, how to use the authority, and how to make our subordinates accountable. If he is very clear of all these concepts, there shall be no hesitation in the efficient working of the organization. That's all I wanted to reveal with you. Thank you very much.